Today we will take a look at the Alexandrite effect using very exotic examples. The Alexandrite effect describes a light source dependent color change. This means that depending on the source of the light, our material can change color. And I don't mean that if I shine red light on something it appears a bit more red. To understand this, we first need to understand light a bit better. Light is electromagnetic in nature and exists in quantized form. So I can talk about light particles, so-called quanta. Thanks to the wave-particle duality, which would be unnecessarily complicated quantum physics for this effect, I can also assign a wavelength to light quanta, and this wavelength corresponds to a color impression in the human eye after some brain work. So a certain wavelength equals to a certain color impression. 480 nanometers would be blue. Okay, what if I shine the entire spectrum of the visible range into the eye? Then this light appears white to us. And what if I leave out just the blue part and keep the rest? Then we have a orange color impression. Complementary colors and so on. Hopefully we still all remember this from art, physics or chemistry lessons in high school. Where can I get the entire color spectrum? Put simply, from the sun. Well, the sun does not really appear completely white on Earth, more with a orange tint. This is because we have an atmosphere that influences the sun's spectrum a little. This daylight can be described using other parameters. For example, on a camera we have heat settings. This has some sort of physical basis. If I make an object very hot, at some point it will start to glow and emit light in the visible range. The hotter it is, the bluer the light. This heat-dependent light emission is called blackbody radiation, and daylight is the spectrum emitted by a body when it has the surface temperature of the sun, of approximately 5770 Kelvin. Certain substances can absorb light. However, they do this very discreetly. They pick out just one very specific color. The name Alexandrite effect actually comes from mineralogy, as some minerals exhibit this effect. It is often confused with pleochroism. Tanzanite, for example, exhibits pleochroism, which describes a direction-dependent color change. It is blue on one side and purple on the other. The Alexandrite effect is not about the direction of the view through the crystal, but about the light source. The king of the Alexandrite effect is of course the very rare Alexandrite itself, a chrysoberyl that exhibits the light source dependent color change when chromium ions are included. Other minerals can also exhibit this effect, but this was supposed to be a chemistry video, not a physics geology video. It's good that some lab chemicals also sometimes exhibit this effect too. So if I offer neodymium trichloride all colors in the form of daylight, it will respond most strongly to certain colors. Neodymium 3+ ions absorb 575 nanometers, 521 and 508 nanometers in the visible range. Absorption at 575 nanometers yellow produces a purple color impression. Absorption at 521 nanometers green produces a reddish impression. In daylight we have all of these at our disposal, and if you hold the neodymium chloride in sunlight you can see this pink color impression. In most laboratories, however, we have light that is generated by fluorescent tubes. Depending on the fluorescent tube, the inside is coated with F-block elements such as terbium, cerium and lanthanum, which then fluoresce under the mercury light and thus shift the high UV component of the mercury emission into the visible range. By using several lanthanides, you get many fluorescent peaks distributed across the entire spectrum, creating this cold white color impression of a fluorescence tube. In the spectrum from such a fluorescent tube from Wikipedia, for example, you can see quite a few peaks in the visible range from europium and terbium, but a few in the violet range could still be attributed to mercury. So this is not a full spectrum light. And since lanthanides are used in particular, lanthanide salts show a strong color change when exposed to either the full spectrum of light or only a few peaks in the spectrum from fluorescent tubes. The emission peaks of the lanthanides then overlap with the peaks of the lanthanide in the sample itself, which can lead to very characteristic absorption in the sample, causing the salts to appear in a different color. One could talk for hours about the colorfulness of lanthanides. However, I was visiting the Helmholtz Center Dresden-Rossendorf, and the Institute for Research Ecology can handle substances that not everyone is allowed to handle. Uranium, for example. Uranium is also located in the F block, just like the lanthanides described above, but only one row further down. This whole thing is the F block. Above are the lanthanides and below are the radioactive actinides. Yes, I know that promethium exists. Uranium can be found directly below the previously case study neodymium. Well, it's more of a coincidence that it fits so well because the early actinides in particular, i.e. the first ones, are chemically a bit different from their respective lanthanide analogues. So we looked at a neodymium 3+ solution, and here we have a solution of uranium 6+ and uranium 4+. Uranium 3+ is a bit more unstable than the other oxidation states. The yellow solution does not contain naked uranium 6+ ions, but hexavalent uranium in the form of a uranyl ion, which has a yellow color thanks to the charge transfer effect. Uranium in the oxidation state +4 also exhibits this Alexandrite effect. The large falcon tube contains a 100 millimolar uranium 4+ solution in 1 molar perchloric acid. Under full spectrum light, we can see the beautiful emerald green color of uranium 4+, and under fluorescent light, as such as in the glove box, we can see how the solution now appears yellowish brownish. It's cool, right? And the same thing also works for plutonium. Here we have a plutonium 3+ solution in 8 molar hydrochloric acid. You can see the distinct blue color under full spectrum light. When exposed to fluorescent light, the trivalent plutonium clearly turns purple. These photos were not taken with my camera as it produced a mixed color in both cases, and we are already at the limit of what's possible with a mobile phone camera for this plutonium concentration and light source. For the sake of completeness, I would like to mention that not only tetravalent uranium exhibits the Alexandrite effect, but also trivalent uranium shows it, especially uranium trifluoride. Not only trivalent plutonium exhibits the Alexandrite effect in solution, but also tetravalent plutonium. And not only plutonium, but also americium compounds are said to exhibit this effect, but we were unable to reproduce it. And also some neptunium compounds in various oxidation states, but we were also unable to show that. Still, it was absolutely fascinating to see this in real life, and a big thank you goes out to the Geomuseum in Cologne for providing the Alexandrite, as well as to Dr. Robin Steutner and the Department of Chemistry with F-block elements led by Professor Dr. Schmidt. Special thanks also goes out to Dennis Grödler and Johannes Ballas. Thanks to the Institute Director Professor Dr. Stumpf and to my patrons for their financial support. With that being said, thank you for your attention and goodbye.